Hello, buenas tardes, buenas noches, buenos días. ¿Cómo está mi gente? It is the Chancleta Generation Podcast.
¿Cómo estás, cariño?
Muy bien, ¿cómo estás tú?
Bien, always nice to see you.
Yes, love seeing your smile. You're always so smiling. All right, everyone. We're here back again. I am Clemencia, a Latina business owner and founder of Moira Studio, which is an advertising agency that speaks to Latinos in the US because everyone, especially us, deserves good advertising.
Love it.
And I'm Cecilia, environmental and social justice practitioner, immigrant from Latin America, from Guatemala, community weaver. So, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And
Who do
I
we
am
have today?
so excited about today's guest because, first of all, I'm a big fan of his work. Big fan. But also, he's just like an awesome human all around. And I've seen him be an inspiration to so many others across the years that it's just been very inspiring to me as well. And we have Pedro Cruz with us today. Welcome.
Welcome, Pedro.
That was a
Bienvenido.
great intro. Appreciate it, Clemencia.
Bien.
Nice to see you. Appreciate you.
So Pedro is a proud first-generation American Puerto Rican son, and this is important information for the rest of our conversation. He is a son, brother, and father to 3 beautiful girls. Oh. He's a lifelong resident of the city of Boston and a product of Boston Public Schools. Through Pedro's leadership and commitment to Latinx and urban youth, he has helped young people gain and develop academic, critical thinking, writing, and artistic skills. Pedro is an accomplished artist himself. I am a witness of this, and seizes his own creative talents to engage youth in conversations about the challenges and opportunities they face, providing them the space to be civically involved and become change agents. Pedro is very personable, oh, I know that one, and an effective communicator, which helps him connect with diverse segments of the community, as well as with policymakers, funders, and influential leaders. He has become a strong Latino leader committed to the youth, to equity, and to community development. When Pedro isn't working with youth in the community, he is at home spending time with his daughters, making art, or riding his bike around the city.
That's amazing.
Excellent.
I am a first-hand witness of all the work that Pedro has done with the youth. It's been extremely inspiring. I've been involved in the events that he's had with the youth. I've seen the art that they've created. I've seen the poetry that they've done. I mean, I've seen kids transform themselves through their poetry. It's amazing. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for just being you.
No, first of all, thank you. Honestly, I want to start off by just thanking both of you for giving me this space and this opportunity to connect, and for even creating this platform for Latinos, man. So I really do appreciate the work that you're doing as well. And thank you for that intro, man. You definitely have to come with me places now. That was a great way to introduce me, but no, honestly, I really do appreciate it, and I have mutual respect for the work that you do as well, Clemencia. You know that. So again, the honor is all mine to be able to share this platform and hopefully connect with all the beautiful Latinos around the world that are going to be watching this podcast.
Thank you. So let's, me and Pedro were having this conversation, outside of this podcast, and, we were talking about how the work that you've done, and the work that you've done with youth, and how the topic of being a first-generation Latino kept coming up in the conversations that you had and the work that you're doing. So what does that mean?
Like, what do you mean when you say first
Yeah,
generation?
no, for sure,
Yeah.
man. So I think, to your point, it's definitely a big part of just who I've been, my upbringing, my identity. And I think, first generation is, when you're the first of your family to be born on US soil. Specific to my story, I was the first to be born within the 50 states, so my family came from Puerto Rico. which till today is treated as a property and not necessarily as people or as another state. So, so we migrated, they migrated to Boston, and when I say I'm first generation, I really just mean that in plain English. I was the first of my entire family, cousins, everyone to be born within the soil of the 50 states, and that's really what it means to me. And it becomes this identity thing now, right, where you have to still find yourself and connect with your roots while being afar, so that's really what that meant for me. It's just again, being born on US soil, but now navigating this identity at home with my parents, but also navigating this identity in the streets, within the new society and culture that my family was even ignorant to or just not aware of. So it really became that divider of these two cultures.
And how did that feel? What was it like?
Yeah, no, it was definitely tough, I would say. And I think at the moment, right, I think it's easier now to look back and say that it was difficult. But I think at the moment, it was just everyday life. It wasn't like I woke up and I was like, oh my God, I'm having identity issues. But I was having issues that later on I was like, that's identity issues. You know what I mean? And I think, and a great point with this too is that a lot of the learning that I did was while learning to become a youth worker and working with these kids. As I'm doing these trainings, as I'm doing these certificates, I'm learning as well. And as these instructors are like, look, this is what trauma is. I'm like, oh my God, I think I have trauma, or here's identity issues. Oh my God, I think I have that, and as I'm learning on how to deal with kids from other countries or dealing with kids undocumented, I started learning about myself. And I would say the biggest issue was, like I was telling you in a previous convo, it's that in the US, I was always too Puerto Rican to be American. But then when I would go to Puerto Rico, I was too American to be Puerto Rican. So it became this, everyone here is telling me, oh, you're from over there, right? And then everyone from over there is like, oh, you're from over there, right? So it was just like, does no one want to claim me, or who do I claim, or where am I from? So it was difficult in that sense. And again, I think in the moment, it was just everyday life. You're so caught up with just life, growing up, being a young person, and all the troubles that comes with that. But I think as an adult, when I'm able to really sit back and reflect on my journey, I would say that, that battle of identity was definitely a deciding factor for a lot of things, and I think even with Puerto Ricans now, everybody's always like, oh, you guys are always so proud. Like you guys always have flags everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's always 100 flags when it comes to Puerto Ricans. And it's funny because to me, it ties back to that. As you start researching the real history of the flag. And at one point, it was illegal. It was illegal to fly that flag or to hold it up, to even own one. Like Pedro Cruz did almost 10 years in prison just for owning a Puerto Rican flag because it was considered a terrorist act. You know what I mean? And that's where the Puerto Rican festivals come from. Literally, that's the birth of Puerto Rican festivals. It was actually a protest by New Yorkers who said, oh, you're gonna arrest us for having Puerto Rican flags, so arrest all 3,000 of us now. And it just became like, okay, cool, let's just let them do that. And that's what gave birth to the Puerto Rican flag, right? So I think I bring this up because identity has always been a thing with my people, especially since the occupation of the US. We've always been trying to carve our culture into reality, or what does it mean to be Puerto Rican under this occupation? What does it mean to be Puerto Rican abroad in the diaspora, right? So I think this question of what does it mean to be has always been present within my culture, even if I didn't acknowledge it. It's always been a thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that Puerto Rico, and I appreciate Pedro all the details with which you're explaining. I think we know when we talk about that question about what does it mean to be first generation, and you're saying the first one of my family, there's the ones who immigrated, and I think Puerto Rico has a very specific difference, right? Like citizens of Puerto Rico are U.S. citizens, even though there is a lot of controversy about like does Puerto Rico want this independence, does Puerto Rico wanted statehood? Does Puerto Rico, because right now it's kind of technically a colony, right? Like it doesn't have either one of these two categories. It's just under stewardship, and economically it's really convoluted, very messed up, and pretty much, yeah, it's complex. So, but just saying, also recognizing that there is a level, like I think a lot of people don't recognize, Puerto Ricans are given U.S. citizenship, and it's your parents were citizens. You are not a citizen of the United States because you were born here. I mean, you are for that, and also your parents were citizens because they were Puerto Ricans. And there is this very different, it's a difference between people who come from other countries in Latin America, who hold other Latin American identities, that has this kind of, it's just the one. And when Puerto Rican says, like, go back to your country, or you're not from here, you're like, I've been a citizen my whole life. My parents were citizens before they came here, right? So, like, this shows a lot of the ignorance of the average United States citizens about the political relationship with the island, and also a lot of it, the struggle that the Puerto Rican people have with, like, this country and the history that covers it. Yeah, no,
100%. And I think even till today, man, there's friends of mine that I know that say they're gonna go visit Puerto Rico, and they ask me, do I need a passport? You know what I mean? And I understand, but to your point, man, there's this understandable ignorance that still lives within the people of what exactly, because again, we haven't been fully welcomed into the house, right? So it's almost like, no, they are citizens, but what does that even mean, really? Like, are we really? We can't vote on presidents. We don't have representation.
Yeah, you're not represented.
So it's like, what benefits come with calling ourselves part of this, right? So it just makes it very clear once you study it that it's a chess move, right? It's like, let's make them enough of us so that we can juice them, right? So we can monetize their whole island, their people, their structure, their placement, down to the geography of the island. But let's not make them too close now that we have to really adopt their problems, or their problems are our problems, right? It's a clear line as your problems is your problems, but you belong to us. So it's a confusion, right? And think of it like that, right? On a large scale, the United States has this identity issue with Puerto Rico, and then it transfers over to the people, right? And then society also has this ignorant view on Puerto Rico, which transfers over to the people, right? So I think that's a great example of just how the relationship within governments really dictates the relationship amongst the people.
Yeah, but there's also, and we can just talk about the Puerto Rican people, but I also see this across the board with other ancestries, that it's like, you are growing up with a bunch of other first generation Americans, and the relationship that each of those people's families have with their country of origin is so different that the sense of identity is really not homogeneous. It's not something that you can grab examples from your friends or from other people's families, because the level of either assimilation or resistance to assimilation is so great that it's just like the range is so wide that you really don't have a model to work off of. It's just like, I'm not first generation, but I came here when I was 12, and I had friends that were like, their parents didn't want them to speak Spanish. And then I had other friends who were like, the family was adamant that they spent every summer back in their home country, and they had their culture very clear, that they learned a lot of things about their culture because they really wanted them to be close to their family and their ancestry. And so it's like, you had the whole range of acculturation or assimilation, and so it's kind of hard to navigate is that an identity just based on, like, as a little kid, you're like, okay, where do I land in here, and sometimes it's not always what your family wants. Sometimes it's like, no, I actually want to learn Spanish. I don't want to forget about my language. So you may be going against your parents' will or your family's will, as you're trying to navigate this identity as a little kid, which is like extremely stressful, you know, because you're dealing with so many other things, and also trying to be cool in school and not get bullied and not get beat up, and, you know, all these other things. And then you're also navigating identity with your own family and among your other friends, and among your other, people from the same country that you're from or your family's from, and then from Americans. So it's like so many things to
and
deal
that's
with.
a great point, Clemente. I think I would add to that by saying that let's look at it even on the other side of it, right? Let's look at it like, which was my case, that my parents wanted me to learn Spanish, and aquí se habla español, en la casa se habla español, en la escuela se habla inglés. You know, there's a lot of that. Like, you know, when you come home, you speak Spanish. But then the hard part of that is that they're trying to instill this identity in me. They're trying to keep this culture alive. But the moment I leave the house, where does that identity live? There's no space for it. There's no space being created for this little Puerto Rican kid growing up in the Villa Victoria, Boston. There's no space for that, right? Like, there was no space or embrace, you know what I mean? Which leads to, I think, another part of the combo of why Villa Victoria was so important, right? And why did that play such a key role into my childhood? But it's that. It's like, 'cause I think on the other end, what a lot of parents deal with, and even those that don't come from Puerto Rico, South America, all these other places, the issue is that we can teach you this culture, we can teach you the dances, we can teach you the food, but when you leave this house, like, where are you gonna use that, or where is that being welcomed, or where is that being embraced? And I think that was the issue. I think now in society, you know, I think we've developed enough that people are more aware of differences, people are more aware of culture. But I grew up in the 90s. You know what I mean? When I was coming up, man, there was no Latinx talk. Like, that wasn't even a word. Like, for real, it wasn't even a word. It was just, you're from here or you're not. You know what I mean? Or you're Hispanic or you're not. And there was a lot of that. So I think that's also, one, it shows progress within society. But going back to my specific story, it was difficult because it was like, I'm learning to be Puerto Rican at home, but it was at home. It was at home. I didn't know where this Puerto Rican would live outside of home, because when I go to school, I got to speak English. You know, when I'm with my friends, I got to speak English. I got to act American. You know, I got to do American things. I'm learning the American way. They're speaking about American TV shows, you know, while my mom's talking about the shows that she used to watch. So it was almost like literally two different worlds that I'm navigating. And I felt like at home, I'm a certain person. And then when I leave, I got to be this other person. Which, again, going back, not to keep mentioning it, but I think that's what gave birth to this identity issue. That it's just like, I couldn't fully engulf myself into this Puerto Rican culture, but I couldn't also fully engulf myself in this American culture. So it was always like this back and forth until I got, I think, old enough and mature enough to be like, wow, wait, this mix is me. It's not about being all Puerto Rican or being all American. I am this mix. I am this mixture. I am this, whatever the percentages are. That is me. That is my identity. And I think it took time, maturity, education, healing, all that good stuff for me to really realize that this is me. It's not about making myself 100% American or 100% Puerto Rican. I'll never be neither or. And I think once I made peace with that is really once I started to really own my light, because it was like, you know what? This is me. This is me. I am this Puerto Rican that was born in America. I am this Puerto Rican that spoke Spanish at home but spoke English in school. That is me. That's my reality. That's my truth. That's my story. And once I started to own that, I think it's what gave me the sense of power, because now I was able to connect with all these first generation individuals, right? I started to realize I'm not by myself. I'm not the only one, you know. And now we live in a society, like you said, there's some Spanish and Puerto Rican individuals that probably won't even speak Spanish, or any kind of Latino that don't speak Spanish, right? Or vice versa. Or you got the Latinos that have been here for 10 years that still don't speak English, you know, because they didn't want to assimilate, you know what I mean? So either or, I think it's just a great point in terms of just, you know, that I realized with time that what was difficult was my reality. Like, this is my identity, you know, like, this is me. This is me.
I think what is I think that this country, like, I would say that there was something you really are. It's like you are American. Like, I always have this conversation with Clemencia. It's like America goes from like it's a continent. I was born American in Guatemala, and it goes from the tip of Alaska to the Tierra del Fuego. You are Caribbean. You are in the west, in the Western Hemisphere. You're like in Las Americas, and you are American, like a U.S. citizen. I think the history of the United States and is colonialism, is imperialism, is white supremacy. Is one of the things that put us all in these kind of situations in which we're always trying to figure out. There is no space. Like, I come from Guatemala, which is a pluricultural country that has a lot of native indigenous cultures, and then not that there is no racism, not that it's at all perfect, but like what I'm saying is there's this conception that I know that there are indigenous peoples who, like, a parent spoke, one was from Tutuil, the other ones were Quechis, the children spoke two languages, then they learned Spanish in school, and there was so many of that, and there were so many combinations of those possible ethnic cultures, ethnicities, that is like the word mestizaje, which I think is very different for our local history Guatemalan, that what it means mestizaje in the United States and within the largest or Latinidad, right? Which are those are concepts who are complex and that academia or like have to spend a lot of time thinking about. But I think it's a very particular project of the United States creation of their own identity to strip you, to don't allow you to be rooted in anything else but to that force to assimilate. Because I think that there is stories of other people who immigrated or have grown as first generations in other countries, and there is a little bit more room. And here in this country, there is a very specific project to strip you of that and to disconnect you from where you
Yeah,
come.
no, Sissy, that's a great point, man. You know, like, you don't hear a little Puerto Rico in every city. You know what I mean? But you got a little Italy, right? You got a Chinatown. You got all these different communities, right? Or even Irish pubs area. All these, like, you can definitely see how they celebrate specific cultures, right? They welcome, and it's funny because I say this all the time, man. The U.S., they don't mind immigration. They really don't. Like,
right.
let's call it for what it is. They don't mind immigration because there's countless of Irish immigrants, from, Scotland, all these European countries, man. Like, there's all these kinds of immigrants here, and you never see them as the poster faces of the issues with immigration, right? It's always specific countries, POC countries, Latinx countries, really, that get this heat of immigration, which to me, it just, again, to your point, it showcases how they cater to some populations more than they would others. You know what I mean? And I think to your point, like, again, if you ask me, they see themselves in those immigrants, right? Like, when someone comes from Europe, they get it. They understand it. They're like, of course, that's fine. Welcome. Let's help you. You know what I mean? But when it's from the Caribbean or when it's from South America, then it almost becomes this criminalized act of looking for how dare you want a better life. You know what I mean? And the crazy part about this whole country's based off immigration, man. Like, that's the part that really gets to me, like, under my skin, is like the founding fathers were immigrants. You know what I mean? Like, if we're gonna be technical about it, man. But yeah, to your point, there's definitely, there's struggles with specific cultures, to try to keep them alive or feel like you're being honored, you know what I mean, to be foreign in this country, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, when the Irish came, there was discrimination against the Irish. There was some discrimination against the Italians, but they assimilated in a certain way over time.
Sure.
They did. And now there's really not that many, Italian Americans that speak Italian.
For sure.
Except
what I mean?
The North End, that has the most Italian Americans, the more condensed Italians in the world.
But but it's really hard to find now all of these, cultures that are like still very rooted to their ancestry, and they have family back home and they go and visit family. It's not like that anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's our turn now to be the ones that are under that, lens of, you are now the immigrants that are, causing the issues.
For sure.
But yeah, I agree that there's a strong feeling of assimilation in all of us. And it's sort of like this internal battle of, you know, what do I want to do with that? Like, do I keep being like my family, or do I, and you know, it was, I feel very much what you said, Pedro, about the fusion, right? That mix. And I think this is a moment in which, you know, the generation before us and the one after us, these three generations are really feeling that. And it's like, what is that mix, what is that fusion look like? And is it okay for me to have that and for me to express that, you know, because you could be living it, but another thing is to be outward with it, like express it. This is my mix and this is my fusion. This is what I'm expressing out into the world. And like, that is something that has been very confusing to people, and that has been very scary for people to come out with. And this is something that we're really trying to, you know, make more people aware that it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to have that fusion and that mix inside of you, and that really your identity is whatever it is that you make it be.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. And I think a lot of beauty has come out of it too, man. I think we've seen it even in the music. You know what I mean? We've seen it in the music, but, you know, specifically to reggaeton, right? One of the biggest genres in the world right now, you know, started off as, you know, this underground music in Puerto Rico, and now we see all these influences of hip hop involved in reggaeton and all these fusions. So I use that as one example of many, you know, or just even I recently saw Spanish sushi, which is literally sushi with like plátanos and a salami in it. But again, like, my whole point is just like, man, fusion is part of it. Like, you know, like this wovenness, even Puerto Rico. Like, if we're gonna speak technically about Puerto Rican, is a fusion of Spaniard, African, and the indigenous people of the island, the Taínos, right? So I think the infusion has always been there, right? I think that's, to your point, we have to embrace it, right? There's nothing wrong that comes with that. I think as long as we continue to honor, right? As long as we continue to uphold those that came before us, as long as we understand that it's a fusion, as long as we understand the different ingredients in the fusion, right? I think the harm comes when you think the fusion is the original. I think that's where the harm comes. But as long as we know that it's a fusion, as long as we know, nah, look, this is a mixture of this and that and that and this, that's fine, man, because I think that's the beauty of it at the end of the day, right? Is that you're able to look at all these different things, or all these different cultures, different music, different foods, different architectures, and you're able to, you know what, I want to mix this up, I want to turn this, or this is how we do it in Puerto Rico, I saw how you do it in Boston, let's mix that together and do something else. So I think there's definitely a lot of beauty in accepting this new whatever you want to call it, this new generation, this new era, you know, this new bloodline, whatever it is that we want to call it. I think there's definitely beauty and power to it.
What do you think has helped from your experience when you do your work to, like, you know, what is your, I don't want to call it flavor, but thinking about food, but like, what is your you know, your avenida, your leadership? How do you connect with, you're talking about your youth work, when you find other young people that you can recognize yourself a little bit, and what do you see yourself like now you have that you can offer to them to make that transition better, like easier?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think honestly one of the greatest skills I've been able to learn throughout the situation is code switching. I think code switching has been one of the greatest tools that I've been able to master, that it's like I can sit in a room full of corporate individuals and know how to move in that room. The same way that you can put me in a room with a whole bunch of kids from the neighborhood and I'm gonna know how to move in that room. Or you can put me in a room with a whole bunch of parents and I'm gonna know how to move in that room, right? And to your point, it's all three different flavors, right? But taking in that, again, taking in my own experiences on how do we navigate in school, how do we navigate at home, how do we navigate in the community, all these different environments, all these different people that I've been able to meet has really prepared me to be able to just code switch and navigate. So to answer your question, I approach it authentically. I think no matter what room I am, again, going back to, I'm always gonna be first generation Pedro. no matter what. No matter if I'm in a room of corporate individuals and I'm talking a certain way, that's Pedro. That's still Pedro. You know what I mean? It's just that I know who my audience is, right? The same way that if I'm talking to a kid, I might use different language than if I'm talking to an adult. Same message, but it's just I know who my audience is. So I think for me, it's about knowing who your audience is and having the tools to be able to meet them where they're at, right? Well, like, well, how do I gotta talk to you for you to get it? Versus how do I gotta talk to them for them to get it? Or how do I gotta talk to this other person for them to get it? So again, I think it's just really about learning who your audience is and being able to navigate these different worlds, man. I think there's a power to me knowing how to navigate my household with my parents who only speak Spanish, and then I learned how to navigate, you know, the school with my teachers who didn't speak Spanish, and then I navigated, you know, the community with all these other people. So I think, again, these were all skills that I just subconsciously started to build and I use in my daily life. But at the end of the day, I just present myself authentically myself, man. It's always the same story, it's just the language might be different.
I love that. I love how that, you know, something that you struggle with at the beginning makes you turn it into your superpower. Love that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Sorry, I got teenagers over here texting me. Talking about kids and I got kids over here.
But I just want to say, because, like, you know, I always find that code switching is one of a thing that makes many, I know it makes me think like I'm splintered, but it's not something I want to do. That I want to be a person who don't want to have to find to accommodate. Like, I understand talking to your audience and like adjusting it. So that was an interesting reflection for me. Thanks for sharing that.
No, for sure. I appreciate the question.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, I didn't see it that way before either. It was kind of like, yeah, like, you know, experiencing all these different things and navigating them all is making us kind of like very fluid in the way that we express ourselves. And oh, look at the little.
Oh yeah, you can see the little one. She's gonna make a guest appearance.
Hi.
She was like, yes.
And it's kind of like you start learning that, you know, you don't have to be so rigid. Like, you know, we encounter a very rigid world, you know, as we were growing up, but it's like we don't need to be so rigid. I could put on a, you know, pantsuit and be super serious and like, you know, crush it in the corporate world, or I can go and, you know, put on my, you know, outfit to go and walk down the street and feel great about expressing myself, you know, and like the corporate people will be like, well, that's not the same person. Yeah, it is. It is the same person. I just express myself in different ways, and that's cool. Yeah, you can do that. And like, you know, maybe as the time goes by, you know, people can be like, because you know, people are always like putting you in boxes, right? Or like putting labels on you. And as we start expressing ourselves in very different ways and doing the switching, it's hard to put you in a label or in a box. And maybe like as time keeps going, we stop doing that. We stop putting people in boxes, you know. And I think that this is a really cool progression that we're working on.
Yeah, no, and I think what we're all realizing too is that these boxes don't define all of us. You know what I mean? It's hard to put someone in a box when some people just simply don't fit in these boxes. You know what I mean? I don't think and then I think especially with all these first generation, with all the migration, with all the, you know, just the traveling that was, you know, like when you, again, and I speak always about Puerto Rico because it's my best, most of what I have experience about and knowledge, but when you think of, there's more Puerto Ricans outside of the island than there is in the island. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think, so again, to your point, I think, you know, this has become our new reality. You know what I mean? We're not as cookie cutter as we would think we are, and we're all the same. Or listen, no, like, and that's another thing. Even in Puerto Rico, it's 100 different shades, 100 different colors, 100 different personalities. You're either from the city or you're from the campo, or you got educated or you didn't, or you're more white passing or you look African, or everything in between. So to your point, man, there's like 100 different boxes that we can fit in, you know, and I think there's beauty in that.
Yeah, or not fitting.
Yeah, exactly, or not fitting.
Not fitting
exactly.
the box.
We don't need boxes.
Screw this box.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to hear a little bit more about, because we always want to leave this all episodes, you know, with something that people can walk away with, you know, that they can do tomorrow to, you know, start, because we try to, you know, pose the challenge. Ooh.
Sorry, no, she's good.
We pose the challenge and then we kind of unravel it. And then we say, okay, well, this is what we can do tomorrow to, you know, help somebody feel better or help ourselves feel better. Or, you know, what do you think is like the one thing that we can do as Latinos or first generation Latinos to, you know, just step into this identity and be proud of it?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. Honestly, I would say a few things to that, man. I would say first, man, you got to learn about yourself. You have to learn about yourself, man. I think even whether you were born here, whether you were born on an island in a different state, different country, I think it's so important for us to really get connected with our ancestors, man. And I say that wholeheartedly, man. I think it's crucial. And I'll lift it up to that level. I think it's crucial for everyone to be aware of what your story is, right? Your people, what led to your parents being here? Why do you speak the way you speak? Why do they speak the way they speak? Where did they come from? What happened? What led to them leaving? Oh, was it the government? What happened in the government? Like really going back all the way, you know, I did that and I landed all the way to the Ainos. Like I literally just kept tracing back and I'll read about something and they'll mention something else and I'll read that and read about that and they mention something else and you kind of just jump back. And I say that because to Ceci's point, that's what they don't want you to read, or they don't create the spaces for you to read that, right? So let's put it that way. They don't create spaces for you to know who you are. And when you look around the US, they love their ancestors. You know what I mean? Like that's one thing they're not short of, right? They have love for their ancestors and the founding fathers, and you go into government buildings and you see these portraits and you see these statues and stuff named after them. So they're fully aware of the importance of being connected to your ancestors and what does that mean. So I think one is really learning about yourself, but I mean, when I say that, I mean your people, right? It's really learning about that. I think the other component of that, I think, is really answering the question of who are you, right? Who are you? That's one of the things that helped me out. And I remember a good friend of mine's actually, you know, we were talking about art. This was like 5-6 years ago, and we were talking about art, and I had said something about, yeah, I'm a photographer, something along those lines, and he said, no, you're a Puerto Rican photographer. Don't forget that. You know what I mean? And that stuck with me. It stuck with me because it was like, man, you're right. Like, I'm not just a photographer, I'm a Puerto Rican photographer, man. Like, I'm not just a poet, I'm a Puerto Rican poet, I'm a Puerto Rican painter, I'm a Puerto Rican artist, I'm a Puerto Rican youth worker. Again, it's really owning that identity, man, really owning that, you know? And then one of the things that helped me out was, you know, my name. You know, my name was one of the biggest things for me, man, that I'm still working on, but I would catch myself subconsciously, I would introduce myself as Pedro. You know, and I realized how important it is for me to say Pedro. There's a difference, right? And I think, and those are small things, but those are powerful things when it comes to your own identity, but also when it comes to you owning the room. And I think for me, recently it's been just owning this. Is like, I don't need to change my name, the pronunciation, so that it could be easier for you. No, you pronounce it Pedro. And if I gotta say it 3 times, I'm gonna say it 3 times. If I have to make you uncomfortable till you get it right, we're gonna do that. And we're gonna go on this back and forth until you get it right. Cause there's an honor in your name, right? Like your name, that's your culture right there. The pronunciation, the spelling, everything is tied. That's the number one thing that's tied to your culture. And that's what you put on every document. That's what you put on this video call now. That's what you introduce yourself with. It's on your business cards. So I think really owning your name it's a great and easy way for someone to start just thinking of their own identity and owning that space, man. So now everywhere I go is like, you know, hi, my name is Pedro. And they're, oh, Pedro, cool. And they could say Pedro, I'm fine with that. But I'm introducing myself as Pedro. You know what I mean? And I think, again, just learning about your culture, you know, learning who you are, and really owning your name, man. Those things are a starting point. I don't think it's the end all be all, but it's a starting point for you to really start taking ownership, man. And then the other thing I would say is that Jose Maso, a great Puerto Rican leader here in Boston, man, that I, you know, who I've had the privilege of sharing many spaces with, man, he has this quote that he always says that I never forget, that he's like, you know, and it's coming from him, he's an elder, but when he says it, it makes no sense. But he says, I have more yesterdays than I do tomorrows. And I love that because it's him owning his journey, meaning I'm becoming an elder. Right? And I think to me that's so important because even though I'm not there yet, for me to call myself an elder, I'm mentally preparing myself, knowing that eventually I shall become that. Right? So the same way that my parents passed all this culture to me, all this language, man, now that's my responsibility for my daughter. Now that's my responsibility for these other little Puerto Rican kids around me, or these other Latino kids creating spaces for them. So I think it's a lot of that. Again, it's really, I think we need to really take a dive deep into our history, who they try to wash away, into who we are, because they try to confuse you. And as to your name, you know, your parents knew exactly what they named you and how they pronounced it. And I think owning a lot of that tends to lean you towards owning your own identity, right? But you got to start with your name, you got to start with who you are, and you got to start with your history for sure.
Yeah, and then it leads to your legacy.
Yeah, exactly. And then at least you being that elder and like, hey, look, I remember Pedro always talked about Puerto Rico, Pedro always talked about this, or Pedro always talked about youth, you know? And I think to your point, yeah, man, it becomes your legacy, for sure.
That's
amazing. Any final words, Ceci?
No, I think it's just listening. I think, and you know this, my journey is so different because I came to the United States as a young adult who had very much the opportunity to develop, and I came as an international student, and it was temporary, and I never felt that disconnection. I've always been truly connected with Latin America, and not just Guatemala, but I feel myself, that's what I introduce myself, I'm Latin American. I have found my Latin America calls to me. I've had many places that I find myself grounded in the people that I have close to me from there, and it's just I appreciate the experience because it's just one that hurts me to recognize that this country puts so many young people through, and I find it unnecessary, and it's a product of that idea of like trying to make things homogeneous and being who you are and having a space for everyone to be authentically themselves is such an important humanizing path, right? Like it's an important journey. It's important for us to see each other in our common humanity, but also recognize our individuality and our uniqueness, and recognizing that as you are unique, the other person is equally unique and special. And I think, so I'm just listening and recognizing that experience of being a first generation in this country can be a painful one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, transforming. Like pressure that transforms.
Yeah, as we come into our own identity, sort of like waking up from the matrix, you know, and really saying, no, this is what we want, and this is what I want, and not just like putting your head down and just going through the emotions. And this is what they don't want us to be. They don't want us to be our own selves. They don't want us to think for our own. And we're doing that. So let's do more of that.
Yeah, let's keep being loud, let's keep being festive, and let's keep creating community for sure.
Pero thank you so much just so many things to think about and to meditate on, and I hope that people out there can walk away with, a little bit of action items to start really coming into that identity, and also feel better about it. And if somebody's out there and feeling like, hey, this is me too, there's so many of us that have gone through this. Please get in touch. I love to talk. I love talking about this. Thank you
both, honestly. Thank you for creating the space, for having me on the show and allowing me to talk about my experiences. And I would just say out there, man, for whoever's listening, man, even if you feel like you're the only one, I promise you you're not. You'll be the first one to speak up. You know what I mean? So I always say that you're not the only one feeling how you're feeling. It's just no one's spoken up. That's all it is, So I would just encourage everyone, man, your story is someone else's story. And there's always power in sharing that. So I would just encourage everybody to own your story and share it, whether it's through art, whether it's talking, through the work. Just definitely own your story and share it. There's power in that. And thank you both again, seriously, and thank you so for much. Creating this space. I appreciate this, and it was my honor. I promise you, it was my honor to be on this.
Thank you so much. And you guys out there, please get in touch. The X and the Instagram and the TikTok, Chancleta Generation, guys, get in touch. Email me, clem@chancletageneration.com. If you like this podcast, give us a rating. Tell us if you hate it or if you love it. And we'll see you next week. Thank you so
shout out to Chancleta Generation. Woo, woo.
Nos vemos, amor.
Gracias.
Gracias, Pedro.
Gracias.